Hey everybody, it's Georgia Stull. I am from Missouri and I'm going to spend a few minutes of time with you with one of the Gamel Live events. I'm going to talk about thread. I talked about thread last time, but I'm going to take it in a little bit different direction this time. I'm going to give everybody a little bit of time to get on. I can't really tell how many are on yet, but somebody will grab on here, and I hope everybody had a great time last week at the virtual quilt show. It was fun to be able to see all the beautiful quilts and from all kinds of different countries. Visit the vendor mall and place orders. But as a teacher, I just want to thank all of the students who invested some time and money and just really threw themselves into classes. I was overwhelmed by the fantastic response of students coming and wanting to learn more about quilting, and whether it be piecing or hand guiding or Statler. I'm grateful for everybody. And our weather here in Missouri, I see that somebody said it was rainy. Jeanette said it was rainy in Iowa. Well, we are very cloudy and we are supposed to get some real soaking rain. So, I'm still staying sheltered in place. We're opening up a little bit where we are, but I don't see any reason to jump out there right now. And I've got too much to do at home. So I see Nancy and Dale and Cheryl, lots of people starting to plug in here. So I'm going to get started and tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about thread. And last time I talked about choosing thread color. And to be honest, that's probably the number one consideration for most of my customers and even myself. When I'm working on a quilt, I want the color to look good on my quilt, whether I want it to blend or contrast or whatever. But there are a couple more elements that I think are a little bit important, to be honest, when we're talking about thread. And by the way, I took a lot of my information off of Superior Threads. I'm not going to get in too deep, but Superior Threads has a wonderful website, and it has a lot of information about threads. And I personally think, as a quilter, you need to be knowledgeable about thread, batting, needles, and I appreciate that Gamel's been doing all these events to help people become better informed about it. So I've got a quilt on the frame, and but on top of it, I have laid a piece of black fabric because I want to talk to you about a couple of things: weight of thread, as well as probably does it have a sheen, a matte finish, the finish that we have. Okay, so let me pull this camera down so that I always have to think how to use my little gizmo. And granted, you know what? I know that you cannot see this perfectly, but what I hope is the conversation is enough. Let me get in the right place here. The conversation is enough. I think I'm in the wrong place here. The conversation is enough to make you think about your thread, okay? And I'm still not sure I'm in the right place. So I have 4 different kinds of thread. They're basically in the realm of the same color. But what I want to talk about is weight. It's a measurement of the thickness of thread. And generally, the larger the number, the finer the thread. Now, I have all Superior Threads products. This one is Omni. Omni is a 40 weight poly wrap core. Now, you can see, I hope, maybe not, but I hope you can tell that Omni is, I would call it a substantial thread, in the fact that you're going to see it. It's going to be very visible. And also, it is a matte finish. It's not shiny. It doesn't have a sheen. And it's great for a lot of quilts. And it comes in tons of colors. And I especially want to use this kind of a finish. Let's say somebody brings me grandma's old quilt they just found. This is going to look a little more traditional than, say, some of the slicker finishes that I have. So this is a 40 weight. Now, Magnifico is another 40 weight thread, and it is a 2-ply trilobal polyester, and it definitely has a sheen to it. I will tell you, for the most part, my customers like the trilobal polyesters that have a little bit of a sheen. And even though it's just as thick, it's kind of not as noticeable in that it's just a little smoother of a thread, but it's a little more noticeable in the sense that it has a little bit of a sheen. It just depends on the look that you want. Now, excuse me, sometimes we want a thread to disappear a little bit. This is so fine. It is a 50 weight. It's a 3-ply polyester. And it's fairly smooth. It has a matte finish. It's not shiny or anything. And a lot of times this is what you want when you want great texture, but you don't really want the thread and stitching to, I say, scream at you. You just want it to kind of disappear. But then one of my absolute new favorite threads in the whole wide world, it's not brand new, but it's fairly new to me. This one is Micro Quilter. If you haven't tried Micro Quilter, I can't recommend it enough if you're that person that has to do stitch in the ditch. You know why? Do you see how you can just barely see it? And I know it's hard to tell on the camera. We're doing the best we can, but don't be afraid to give Micro Quilter a try. I just got one spool to see what I thought because somebody recommended it for stitching in the ditch. They weren't kidding. I'm not, it's crazy because it is about the width of a hair. It is not shiny, but it is smooth. And let me just tell you, it disappears right into the seam. Another place where I like to use Micro Quilter is I have a quilt that's coming up and there's areas that are black. And we want stitching, we want stitch definition, but we don't really want to see thread. We want texture, not thread. And so when you go to these lighter weights and finer threads, that's what you get. You get the beautiful texture, but you don't get all the thread that, you just don't see a lot of thread. So don't be afraid. The beautiful thing about Gamble machines, this is my Darcy, and she works hard, and guess what? The good news is it takes all kinds of threads. I make sure I buy quality thread. Superior Thread is certainly very much a quality thread. I love their products. And let me just tell you, like I said before, if you want really good education, go to the Superior Thread website. They have great information, whether it is about thread or if it, sorry, you get the look at my mouth there, whether it's about thread or needles, they have fantastic information. And just to learn more about it. Somebody says, what works best in the bobbin? You know what? I kind of have a rule, and for the most part, whatever goes up on top goes in the bobbin. It just does. I don't really switch it up very often because I will have fewer problems with any kind of, I just will have fewer problems if the same thing is on the top as on the bottom. And it's really less of a problem. The nice thing too that I didn't say about Micro Quilter is if by chance somebody has a different color on the background, and you know what, even if it's a lighter color on top and you have this in the bottom, you can barely see it, or vice versa. You can barely see it. And it really surprised me one time because I had a light quilt backing and navy, and we did bottom line. We did Micro Quilter, and you almost couldn't even see it, even though it was navy on a light color. So don't be afraid to try new threads. I do think, I know my dealers, Cindy and Larry Culbertson, one thing they recommend, if you're brand new, get used to one thread, play with it, understand how it works, understand how tension works, then start trying a bunch of new colors, new types of thread. But whatever you do, make sure it is quality thread like Superior Threads. And there certainly are other brands. Glide by Filtech Central is a favorite of mine. just make sure it's a really good quality thread. Well, folks, I don't have a whole lot else to say. It's been a pleasure spending a little bit of time with you, and I hope everybody is taking care and ready to start mixing up in the world and kind of put this COVID behind us, we hope. And thank you, everybody, and happy quilting. Bye.